These are the sounds left from leaving. And from Nova Scotia, here is Jenny Berkel to tell us how she made those sounds and wrote those songs.
So time is all you, in every small move.
I started writing after kind of extricating myself from a overly busy and overly stressed life. I was having a lot of anxiety at that time, and I just really needed to change pace and change scenery. So I moved away to a smaller city and into a little apartment, and that's where I think I wrote almost all of the songs that are on the album in that little apartment. It was exactly the place that I needed to be to kind of become myself again and find these songs.
Right. So was it a process of actually just sitting there by yourself in a little room in front of a computer or whatever you write it with and on and getting down to it?
Yeah, I mean, more or less, I knew that when I moved there, I knew I wanted to be working on new songs, and I just had an abundance of time and not a lot of friends in the community yet. So I just took advantage of that. And I just started writing and recording a whole bunch of demos. I wrote, usually I come to an album with sort of like, here are the 11 songs that I know I want to put on the album. And with this album, I wrote, I think, like 20 songs. Ooh. And it came, and then we sort of narrowed it down once we went through all these demos. So that was
is that a tough process for you to kind of weed some of them out?
It is hard for me, and I think it's really important to have people around me who I trust, who can give me feedback and help me make good choices. I'm sure I could have chosen as well, but I really value I value community feedback. So,
well, you have a couple of guys who co-produced the record with you, Dan and Ryan. Were they
That's right.
part of that process?
Yes. So, yes, both of them were. We went through all the demos, and my manager Wayne also kind of listened to the demos, and we kind of whittled them down from there.
Gotcha. So my understanding is this is the first time you've kind of made yourself one of the producers of one of your records. So maybe you can tell me how that worked, working with the three of you together.
Sure. I think it ended up being like a very organic sort of combination of people and an organic move towards co-production. All of us are sort of, I think, like not loud leaders. And so it was easy to sort of just work collaboratively. And I think all of us, we all really valued each other's ideas. So it was a really, I think for me, by far the most relaxed I've ever felt when recording an album. I tend to go in kind of like, just really worried and nervous that I'm going to make something that I'm not super happy with. And I just felt the whole process felt really enjoyable this time.
Okay. So you recorded at a place called the Sugar Shack. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. So
what kind of place? What was the vibe like there?
It is a wonderful studio. My friend Simon LaRochette, it's his studio, and it's in this tiny little building that you've never guessed it's a studio inside, and it's just he's created a really good mood in the studio. So you walk in and you just feel, I don't know, it's calm. I think the studio itself gives a lot to each record that's created there.
Okay. So what I noticed, well, the album begins with a song called Just Like a River. And the first thing that struck me were the use of strings on that song and then throughout the record. So how did that process, who did the string arrangements, who's playing them? How did that all happen?
as far as I can recall, I sort of knew that I wanted strings before we'd even gone into the studio. I knew that I wanted that to be kind of a core part of the arrangements. But we went into the studio and did all the bed tracks first. And then I also knew exactly who I wanted to have do the strings. And so my friend Cohen and Lightfoot, who plays with Andy Schaaf, he arranged all the strings and played all the strings. And I'm really so happy with how the strings ended up sounding. They really brought a lot to this album.
Cool. And the second track is Kaleidoscope. There's a video. I think you're kind of watching yourself on television, and there's more strings. So do you take part much in the video process as well?
Drive through the night, high beams cut the dark. Out on the highway, somebody's flicking cigarette sparks. All through America, the city's sleeping. Radio plays like a child stuck inside a bad dream.
Yeah, so this was I've had one official video in the past, but this was sort of Kaleidoscope and the video for You Think You Like the Rain were the first sort of official videos I've done in a long time, and
right.
We had a wonderful team that we worked with. So it's Phyllis Rising Productions is the production company, and it's two people who just are so talented. And we kind of started out by just brainstorming together. And we all, again, it was really a collaborative thing. But then once I kind of gave sort of, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, and here's some ideas I have, they sort of ran with that and came up with these really incredible visuals and stories for the videos as well. So I was just so happy to be working with both of them.
Cool. Well, especially, I must mention, you mentioned You Think You're Like the Rain, that red dress that's in that.
Yeah.
You don't have it hanging in your closet anywhere, do you?
What I do, and the thing is, I live in a small house, and our house does not have a lot of storage space. So I really just have one closet,
right.
And the dress takes up like probably a third of the closet space right now.
So, and what can you tell me about the song and the video in addition to the dress, of course?
I know that you feel like wonder to see, stumble and fall on the water that breathes. Wave to you now, pull you back to me, honey, I can make you happy. You think you like the rain over and over, you're falling and making me sad. But I know you're not the rain, though maybe you're everything. I wish you wouldn't be sad.
Yeah, so that video, we knew that we wanted it to be sort of costume driven. Actually, I've never really done something like that, and I'm a big fan of Aldous Harding's tools. I just love like how
she's been here in my room here.
Oh, nice! She's just wonderful.
She's fantastic. I love her.
Yeah, and I love how her videos are so costume driven, and so I wanted to try something that featured some kind of surprising and slightly strange outfit, and we came up with some ideas, and then the directors, they knew somebody from Halifax who they thought would be a good fit for actually creating the dress. So this person, Dakota Burpee, she made it, and she did an amazing job. So really that video in particular kind of just revolved around we wanted it to be really a costume moving around in this natural environment, which is a beach fairly close to where I live. It's a beautiful place. Yeah.
Cool. And that song is preceded on the album by something called Under a Sky, which I think is my favorite on the record. And it's kind of a piano-based thing. So have you got anything you can tell me about that?
Stars from the city hide from me as dark rolls across like the sea. Under a sky somewhere far away and high.
So yeah, that's the last song I wrote for the album actually, and I wrote it. We recorded everything else, and then we recorded everything, and then I thought we were done, and then a while went by, and I was like, I've got a couple new songs. I kind of want to just try recording them. So we went back into the studio and I tried a couple of them, but that was the one that I think ended up being the best of the few that we tried. And I knew when I wrote it that I wanted it to feel like pretty sparse compared to a lot of the other songs on the album.
Right.
Just lyrically and melodically, it felt like that would be the right approach. So yeah, we recorded that. I think we just went into the studio for a day, and I put the guitars down and then came up with the piano part, and then Ryan played the bass, and we pulled in Simon, the engineer. We pulled in his wife to sing, and then Ryan's singing, and it just came together really quickly.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I know that you also write poetry. You have a book called Grease Dogs.
Yeah.
I can't read my own writing is my problem. Left-handed. So I'm curious as to, do you look at the two things, the writing of the poetry and the making of the music separately, or are they all part of a similar kind of vision?
Yeah. I look at them as separate but united at the same time. So I feel like I've found that they both have their own. I can approach both of them in a different way, and they allow me to sort of think things through differently. I can examine different themes in poetry than I can in songs, I think.
Right.
And you have obviously more sort of flexibility with your language in poetry if you're writing free verse, at least, and you're not thinking about rhyming. Patterns and things like that. So I think it's actually adding poetry to my world of creating has sort of, in a way, I think allowed me to approach songwriting a little bit differently. And sort of like allow me to how do I want to say this? Approach it maybe almost more in a lighter way than I would in the past, where I can, because I feel like now I have this place where I can really look in depth at some of the themes that I'm thinking about. And poetry seems just more like a better place to do that. And it allows me to sort of approach the songs in a different way now. And I kind of like having that addition.
Right. So when you're writing the lyrics for songs, do you have to think about how they're going to feel coming out of your mouth and that kind of thing? It's a more physical thing.
Yes, that's such a big part of it to me when I'm writing songs. I think I know a lot of people write the lyrics and the songs separately. I've never done that. I've always approached them side by side because I really feel strongly that the melody should shape my lyrics. And so in that regard too, it's a limitation, but it's a really interesting limitation. I like working with limitations. And so, but it does shape the lyrics. And in the same way, for me with poetry, I personally really, the kind of poetry I love most is poetry that's musical. So I still play with that in the poetry, but in a bit of a different way. So it's really fun. I've really been enjoying thinking about the two of them separately and how they're connected, and sort of, exploring how I might work with both of them differently.
It's interesting how people have different approaches to songwriting.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy yesterday. He starts his songs with the title of the song. And then because he goes, I'm sitting at the computer, I got to call it something. So
that's interesting. That's really interesting.
That's crazy, because usually the title is like the last thing you would think that you would come up with.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. Anyway. So when you have some live shows coming up in June after the record's out, and so do you mix the poetry with the live performance, or are they two separate things there as well?
Good question too. So,
well, thank you.
In the past, I have when I haven't, obviously, just like everybody else, I haven't toured that much in the last while. But one of the last tours I did before COVID was a tour that like very explicitly combined the two worlds, and I had I did mostly songs, but I read a few poems in between some of the songs. And then there was, on every bill, there was another musician, and then also at least one poet, usually two. And it was really fascinating. It made a really interesting show. And also just, I don't know, I don't see a lot of shows that actually do that. And it seems to me like a really natural thing to do. So I think the people who came really, really liked it. I'd like to do that again. But for now, I think with the new record, I think I'll just focus on the songs at shows. But I'm hoping eventually to maybe find more ways to kind of integrate.
I got to guess you have like the poetry books on your merch table at least, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And so what are the shows like? Are you playing with a band? Is it a solo thing? How do you present yourself?
So, well, I mean, I haven't really played any of them yet. But, the plan is to have a little band. So I'm doing a tour with Abigail Lapel, another Canadian, really beautiful Canadian singer. And we're gonna kind of share a band. So she's gonna sing with me and probably play a bit of guitar, and then we've got a bass player and a drummer. And then at some of the shows we might add maybe some strings, for example. But really like to tour more with the band this time, but I'd also really like to tour with strings just because they're such a big part of the record. So yeah. But where I live, I'm in a rural area here, but the Nova Scotia is full of really a lot of amazing musicians. I've only been here for a year so far, so I'm not super connected yet, but I'm hoping to kind of get more involved in the local music community because it's really vibrant.
And are you thinking about what you're going to do next artistically?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been working on a full-length manuscript of poems for a while now, and I'm kind of, that's something I want to do. But I have something else that I worked on. I have something else ready to come out later. I don't know exactly when it's coming out, but I did this project where I could sort of, I think solicited is the right word here. Solicited poems from some poets that I know. And I went through these poems and then chose a selection of them and then wrote songs based on their poems, which was a really interesting experience for me. And some of the poems required like more sort of puzzle piece work than others. Some of them felt already like songs. So that's something that we've recorded already also at the Sugar Shack. But
cool.
I don't know if I'm actually supposed to be talking about it, but there you go.
And that's an interesting process, because then how did the folks who wrote the poems react to the way you set them to music? Have you had any response like that?
Yeah, people were really, really excited. And it's just, I've had some of my own work reinterpreted into different forms. Like I had a poem that it's a long collaboration. I wrote a poem based on a short story, and that poem was turned into a musical piece. And then that musical piece and poem was turned into a dance piece. And it was so intriguing and fascinating to watch, to see all these different transformations. So I think it's always really, the poets were excited about hearing it reinterpreted.
Very cool. Sounds like it's all happening. Very excellent. So anyway, record's out imminently. That's exciting. And
yes.
Tour to follow and rehearsals and all that stuff. So you imagine you got your hands full, don't you?
It's true.
All righty. Well, thank you for taking time to talk to me then.
Thank you
really
so much.
Appreciate it. Come on down if you get a chance.
Thank you. It's great to meet you.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. Yeah, you
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.